right. So I don't know if I want to call it. I'm not sure if I want to commit to calling it a podcast yet. But in this interview that I had with Neethi Bali, and she's been somebody who's been on the front lines of trying to bring back regenerative farming to the population, really, because the majority of the foods that we're getting now comes from conventional farming. And I understand there are some arguments there on how conventional farming helps to feed the world, but because of the research I've done and because of the things that I've learned hanging out with people like Neethi and many other pioneers in this area, I see how things could potentially be different. And Neethi is one of those people who is sort of on that cutting edge. Like she's one of the tips of the spear, if you will, trying to create more awareness around old school, and I'm just saying this in layman's terms, but like old school family farming and how much better the food is that comes out of these old school farming practices that were done for years and years and years until, sort of the agricultural revolution. And now everything has changed and now everything is mass produced and there's all kinds of different systems and processes that are being used in order to feed the masses, right? So anyways, and one of the things that I wanted to ask her is, and I wanted to provide information for you on, is how can you find a farmer that is raising meat, and we specifically keep it to cattle, to beef, because just honestly, the topic is so broad that I wanted, just for time's sake and efficiency's sake, to keep it to beef. And so we talk about that, and we talk about how we can find a farmer who raises beef in a way that's a little bit that's less conventional and more to the way Mother and Nature sort of intended, right? And the belief is that we want to consume animals who are very, very healthy, who have access to foods that Mother Nature ultimately provided for them, which in the case of beef is grass, right? But even more than grass, like when we think of grass, don't just think golf course, think like all kinds of the different grasses out there. And I know Neethi mentions like one of the questions I ask her is, when you go out to the farm to check out the farm, what do you look for? And she says, well, it needs to look like a salad bar. Like literally, it's not just one kind of grass, it's all kinds of different ones, because we want the cows to be able to eat all of these different things. So we dig into that a little bit. There are some politics, because look, let's face it, if you're in this world of food and you're trying to get people who are interested in finding some really, really high quality food, you're going to get into the politics. And I know it's one of the things that she's struggled with over the years, is trying to kind of educate people. And she's been fighting an uphill battle, because a lot of the things she says goes completely against conventional wisdom. So there is some political things in here, and big business, and so she talks about a little bit of that stuff. It's something I know she's very passionate about, and that she's been fighting over. She's been fighting to make our food sources as healthy as possible. Like that's really ultimately what she's so passionate about, and what I love about her. And she helps farmers, she helps people like me, she helps people like you, she helps anybody who's willing to come into her world. She wants to help to make this world just a healthier, better place. So we get into some of the weeds on some of this stuff. She's, like I said, very passionate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some notes at the end here, or somewhere on this post. I'm going to give you some notes so that you can see. You can jump ahead if you need to, right? There might be areas of sections of this that you don't necessarily want to hear. So I am going to put some time stamps in here so that you can just jump ahead as needed to get the information that you want. But yeah, so I hope you enjoy this. I always love chatting with Neethi. Again, just a really passionate, super cool person. And I also have her contact information, which I'll put in here as well, and how you can buy her book. So she did write a book, and it's a great book, and I'm in there. So hey, why wouldn't you want to buy it, right? So anyways, so she wrote the book. I'll put that link in here as well. She gives some on the website, so you'll find all that stuff in, dare I say, the show notes. I sound like a podcaster now. Like I said, I haven't fully committed to the podcast yet, but hey, here's the interview. Jump forward as needed to get the information that you want, but there it is. If you have questions, please let me know. Otherwise, enjoy. All right, gang. So here I am with my good friend, Neethi Bali. And I'm super excited to, one of the things that I did, I think some of you guys know, is I moved from Wisconsin to North Carolina. And one of the biggest stresses I had when I moved to North Carolina was making sure that I could find really good food for my family, because I had done like all of the work. I wanted a farmer. I wanted really clean food. I wanted all of these things. So I did all that work myself when I lived in Wisconsin. And moving here, I was kind of like, I had to start over again. And the amount of time that I put into that was, back in Wisconsin was kind of crazy. And I was so lucky to, like, one of the first people I met when I moved to North Carolina was Neethi, and she was recommended to me by a friend. And like the rest is history, because I went and I talked with her, and it was like all of the sudden, all that pressure just totally went away from me. And I'm like, I can just totally trust this lady to give me the best advice and the best food possible. And like to this day, I use the farmer that you had recommended to me, and it's been just an incredible experience, to be able to get this really wonderful food for my family for, like, it's been since 2012 now. I can't even believe it. So yeah, one of the things I want to do is I want to, I was pretty lucky moving here, but there's a lot of guys who I know are looking for really good food. And, I was kind of lucky in meeting you. So I want to introduce them to you. And I'd like to get your idea. I want to pick your brain a little bit on what they should be looking for when they're trying to, find good meats, and ideally secure their own farmer to be able to supply food for them and their families, to be healthy and all that fun stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So why don't you just tell us just a little bit about kind of what you're doing? I know we were just talking about it, but tell us a little bit about you and what your mission is.
So my mission is to be the catalyst to reestablish the small family farm food system, the regenerative small family farm food system. And I started it in 2009. It was started with my daughter Meenakshi, and she was four years old at the time. When she was 2, she had been diagnosed with esthesioneuroblastoma. I talk about her cancer journey, and I explain all of that. I wrote a book about it. So you guys can buy the book and read it, and then ask me questions if you want to. It's too emotional for me to get too much into the story. The book is about, actually, the first third of it is about our personal story. The second third of it is about this work and about it actually has all the answers for everything that you just asked so far. But I'm also thinking, and the last third of it, are testimonials from people like Tony, who were real people right here who have been affected with the work that we do here. And so, which I appreciate so much. And everybody appreciates you so much for sharing your story, because everybody's really just not brave enough to do that. But that's it. I mean, right now, what's interesting is that as of the end of last year, I'm a certified MeatRx animal-based nutrition coach. I never cared to gain any type of nutrition certification or whatever, because when I was researching all the programs, then they were all basically like psych classes to teach people how to break old habits and get in, like develop new habits. And I was already an industrial psych major. Isn't that interesting? And what was even funnier is that when I created Farm to Fork Meat Riot, then it was a psychological operation to reteach people how to honor the laws of nature and purchase foods from farms that were, at the time, we didn't have the word regenerative, I guess, as part of the vocabulary, but basically they're regenerative farms. And so they're regenerating life force on the land. And so since then, I was really excited when Dr. Sean Baker decided that he wanted to have this program and promote meat at a time when people are trying to be, or the institutions have decided to convince people that they should only be plant-based, which will never allow anybody to gain any health. And that's another reason I didn't want to be part of the institutions, is once you have a contract with them, like a nutrition certification or degree or something, then you're limited on what you can say, because they're constantly threatening your degree. And so instead, I decided to go rogue, which I did not know that I was going rogue. I wasn't trying to go rogue. I wasn't trying to go against the grain. But then Joel Salatin told me that you're a rogue. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so now I'm also a national rogue food leader. We just had our very first rogue food conference this past January. If you want to check out roguefoodconference.com, you can actually order a copy of the conference and hear from all of us leaders and see what's going on with rogue food and why people who are raising real food, regenerative food, had to even be rogue or are often pushed to going rogue just to be able to give you food that's unadulterated.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
no, absolutely. Well, thanks for sharing that. You've got some great things going on, and I just love following your your journey here because you are. I had mentioned, I think before in one of my posts to my group, that you're like one of the most passionate people I've ever met. Like it's insane. Like when I first met you, I'm like, oh my God, like this, it's incredible. So yeah, you're doing some great work. But let's dig into this thing just a little bit. So what I want to do is first, I just want to give me your thoughts on, because we see, if we go to the grocery store, we see all these different labels on food. And of course, we'll keep this just specific for meat, but you see organic, you see, and we'll just keep it to beef too, because I think it's just for time's sake and just to keep this simple. But, you see like organic, you see grass fed, you see grass finished, you see, there's all kinds of different things out there. What, kind of decipher some of this stuff. If I buy organic meat, am I all good? Should I buy grass fed? Like it's
okay.
confusing for people now,
Mm-hmm. I would say the easy answer would be get out of the grocery store. That's the easy answer. And the reason is we have a centralized food system, and it is ruled and run by the centralized institutions. Now, just a little history really quickly that, we created institutions, like meaning we the people of America or any civilization, right? You create institutions to more efficiently disseminate information, right? And so institutions are created to be our servants. And so we have like a medical institution, we have an educational institution, we have, since post World War II, we have a centralized food system, which, happened post-industrialization. And we also have, of course, the institutional government, right? And so all of these structures that we created were created to serve us. And now they have been corrupted and they have become our masters because they have forgotten that they're designed to serve us. And that is because of the corporatocracy. So corporatocracy has a conflict of interest going on. And what I mean by that are like that companies, for example, like the most popular scenario, Monsanto, which is also Bayer, they are able to put their own people to volunteer into positions into the FDA and USDA, and then they effectively oversee their own work. That is a paid conflict of interest. And then there's this revolving door where those same people go there, work for them, come back. So they go to they're working for Monsanto, they work for the USDA, serve a term, come back to Monsanto, and there's this revolving door that's happening. Now, this is just one example of very many, okay? And so if you are in a centralized food system, which includes every easy way to get food, every easy way, grocery stores, restaurants, and farmers markets, because they all have to meet a health code. If they have to meet an institutionalized code, then that means we basically don't want anything from them. And why? Because if I'm going to keep it limited to beef, but just very quickly, like eggs, for example, have to be washed. They're permeable and they are required to be washed in a chlorine solution. That means that you effectively are putting bleach inside of your eggs because those shells are permeable. But what's even worse than that is they do that with vegetables. If you want clean, washed vegetables, they have to be washed in this bleach. So what is the problem with all of that? I mean, besides the obvious things, it's that you want live live food. You want enzymatically living alive food. All of these probiotics and prebiotics that people try to take out of a box or a pill or a liquid or I don't know what. I mean, that isn't where you get those things. I mean, eat some dirt and you'll be like all set, okay? Or eat anything that touched the ground and you're all set. When it comes to beef, all of that is happening when we age it. So you have like, you know, when you're getting beef from some human being that you can put your eyes on and you can see their pasture, then that beef is going to somewhere, and after they bleed it, they're hanging it and dry aging it in the fridge, and it could be for however long you want it to be. It could be for 24 hours or up to 3 weeks or 6 weeks, okay? So it doesn't matter how long. That really does not matter. I mean, some people will argue, oh, it's more tender, it's more great, it's more whatever after, you know, the longer time. Some people are like, oh, you're wasting, you know, like a lot of really good fat by hanging it so long because it grows mold on it that they cut off on the outside. I say it doesn't matter, whatever you want. You know, personally, I'm mostly carnivore, so I want a lot of the fat, and so I don't want to hang it too long. So, you know, a week is fine. 2 weeks if that's what the farmer needs. 3 weeks if it must be, but not really my favorite. So interestingly, you can, you know, but the big deal is that that meat is allowed to, you know, it has beneficial bacteria. It is enzymatically alive. You can freeze it and you will not lose any of that. And let's be honest, you have to freeze it because you can't consume 1,000 pounds of meat right now, like today.
Yeah.
So
let me just kind of summarize a little bit. So what you're saying is, I mean, you held up the book and you're like, get out of the grocery store. Like, I totally get that, because no matter what you're saying is, no matter what's really on that label, you know, grass-fed, organic, you know, all these different things, it doesn't necessarily matter, because they all have to be, there's so much processing that goes into these things that could be potentially deleterious to our health, right?
okay, I'm sorry. I totally also didn't make one of the most important points about that. I get really carried away. I'm sorry, Tony. You know me. So, okay. Number one, if it is in the centralized system, then it is also being raised for volume so you can have profit. You're a businessman. You know that I'm a bad businesswoman because I don't care about that. I care about, you know, integrity, like food with integrity. You cannot have food with integrity and a centralized profit margin. You cannot. And so, and especially when you have a general public that has been educated by the same centralized system to want the cheapest thing because they have been told that they are not worth, you know, whatever. Like, you're just not worthy. That's what they're taught. You're taught that you're not worthy and you're only worth the cheapest thing ever in life, and you're not worth everything, and you're beyond worthy. And I say that in my book too. I explain to everybody that you are important and you are worthy. You are worthy beyond belief, and that nothing is more important than that you understand that you're worthy and your worth, and to invest in yourself. Because if you were to do that and get this highest quality food, you would need less food, you would spend less money overall, and you wouldn't need the healthcare system. So let's just start with that. Secondly, as far as that beef goes that goes in there, it's the youngest, fastest. If it's youngest and it's fastest, that means that they want it off the land within a year, okay? If you want to get the amazing beef that you get, 3 years. So every year, so whatever you're paying in the grocery store, I don't know what food costs in the grocery store right now, but I'm just going to use a round figure for argument's sake, and then you can put in your own figure for where you're at. But let's just pretend that it's $6 a pound, okay? If it's $6, I'm talking about just ground beef for ease, not like steaks.
Like you walk into like your local grocery store, you walk to the meat section, and yeah, it's probably about.
If you go into your Food Lion or any grocery store, I don't know where you go, but like wherever you go, let's pretend, I mean, by the way, if you go to Food Lion and you go to Whole Foods, there's not very much difference, except for that Whole Foods might know the person who brought the beef in, and it might not have gone to a CAFO lot, meaning like that creature might have actually been standing on grass versus dirt, which is great. It's great. Whatever they tell you on their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chart that they have, they're not lying. If they say it's a 5 because it's been there, then that's great. But it's probably not a 5 because I don't know any 5s in North Carolina. There's none because they would have to be processed on the farm, and there is none. The only 5 I know in Whole Foods is from White Oak Pasture, which is down in the south, like further southeast region. And White Oak Pastures beef is processed on the farm because they did that. I mean, Whole Foods talked them into setting that up, said they would fund it. I don't really know if they did actually fund it. You might could talk to Mr. Harris about that, who's the owner of White Oak Pastures. But and I don't know anything because you got to talk to the farm. But what I know is that they wanted for their number 5 status for the creature to be processed on the farm, which is, by the way, otherwise illegal to do. So you have to have like actually a huge USDA facility set up on the farm, which is what they invested in, which, by the way, is like really insane cost wise. And like most everybody is not going to be able to ever do that. Okay. Yeah. So they have this incredible facility there. And but they're also, in my book, an F, but they're not a poison. And the reason that they're an F only is because they're surrounded by GMO spray, and those animals are not being fed grain, Tony, but they are vaccinated and they are being medically managed institutionally, on the institutional level. But we also know that they are on grass and outside on grass and walk into the I've been to their processing center. I've watched them like kill a creature, process it, butcher it. It's beautifully done. I would eat it for sure. However, if someone is chemically sensitive already or has a diagnosis, they will have a reaction to that meat. And they aren't raising it out as long as I want our meat to be raised out. So if it's in the store and it's efficient and it's profitable, it can still be regenerative like theirs is, but it's still fast moving because they're, big and depending on what the farm requires and the size of the farm. And
it's interesting that Whole Foods actually has that system, because I've never seen that 1 through 5 anywhere. So I feel like they're at least making an effort to try to do something. They're trying to work within the confines of conventional farming or whatever, but still try to find some quality stuff. So that's promising, because if you walk into Target or you walk into wherever else.
Yeah, they don't care.
No, it's
all that stuff is literally for shit. If it's anywhere outside of Whole Foods, without that grading scale system, which you can actually, like, depending on the store and the relationships that they intend to maintain, because each store has the power. I mean, the one thing I love about Whole Foods is each store has the power to develop as strong or not any relationship with their local farmers. And a lot of those guys are, they're just human beings who are making decisions. And if they're very vested in it, they're going to work really hard to have the relationship because that's it's important to them. And that's one of the reasons they work for Whole Foods, And then there's those guys that, working with farmers is kind of a pain in the ass, as you very well know. And, you're dealing with people and moods and all kinds of things. It's a lot to deal with. And it's easier to deal with a corporation or business that is just going to say yes or no. Yeah. And, you just want them to say yes all the time. And you just, as a customer, always wants to be right. And, Tony, you know me. Yeah, I'm here to tell you, customers never right. You don't know what you're doing. And you're always wrong as far as I'm concerned. And you just have to learn how nature works, because nature's right, but you're not. So.
Yeah, I always say, like, we have to fall back on Mother Nature. Mother Nature has our backs. Like, she's the one that knows us better than anybody else out there. Like, I think, and what I find is if we can fall back on that, that's what really allows us to get ourselves back into good health, to looking better, to performing better, to feeling better. All of these things really happen when we can lean back on Mother Nature. So if somebody is in the situation where, like, if they don't have access to let's say they don't have access to a Whole Foods, but if you do have access to a Whole Foods, get the highest number you can. And if you look in the meat section, you can actually see they have a grading scale. I know it's hard to find those 5s, but I see quite a bit of 4s. But no, it's
Yeah.
obviously not the best thing, but it's probably the best if you don't have any other thing to do.
You
But
just
what if
might not
people,
like how that tastes. Like we don't like
yeah,
how the 3 and 4 taste,
yeah,
but and
there
so
is a
then you have
difference.
a yeah, and then you have a lot of people that are like, grass-fed beef tastes like crap. Yeah, I get it. I mean, because if their pasture is not diverse, it doesn't have a lot of variety and like grasses, a variety of grasses, healthy grasses, then there isn't any opportunity for the flavor to develop. And again, if it's being processed efficiently at 18 months at a max, okay, it's going to taste like crap or like nothing. And if it gets to ours, like, what you're used to eating, Tony, is a 3-year-old steer or older. And those animals, I mean, your youngest thing probably that you ever eat is 28 months. And that's like for shit, okay, for us, because we're just like bougie beef eaters now. But the youngest thing you're probably eating is probably 28 months. If she's still cutting things the way that we had talked about, that she and I had worked out, then that's the case. Otherwise, once it gets to be 36 months or older, now every year that you do it, let's pretend that meat's $6 a pound in the store, whatever that crap is. So that's $6 a pound. So that's at 12 months, 18 months, not even on a healthy pasture, maybe not even finished on pasture. Maybe it goes to a feedlot. And even if it's grass fed, they can grain finish it and call it grass fed. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a percentage that they can finish on grain and still do that. And isn't that fun? Because that's called a process, because the USDA wants to be very technical. That's a process. It's not a ingredient.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I don't know the lies, like how they convolute the definitions of these things. But anyway.
Seems like a lot of those labels are there's just not the labels. There's not a lot of regulation around the labels. It seems like grass fed.
Okay, let me give you an example. I know people who are certified grass, what do they call that? I don't care about these labels, so I forget their names now, but like it's some grass certification. And they come set it up one good time. They have never come back. I mean, so that guy could be feeding those creatures Twinkies right now. We don't know.
Yeah.
And they haven't even addressed other things I address in my book, like vaccination, quality of the pasture. Is it regenerative? How are they rotating them? I mean, just the fact that they're standing outside on grass is not enough.
Yeah.
And if they're just on all fescue, that is bad. You can't put them all on one thing. That's like us only eating
Broccoli every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And not just meat, because meat's different and meat's diverse, but broccoli specifically.
Yeah. So if somebody doesn't have, let's just say they can't find access to a farm, or they're sort of in between, and they don't have a Whole Foods, I mean, what do you recommend? Like, what is the next best thing while they're looking for a farmer? What?
Eat beef. Eat beef. I don't care. I mean, I know Tony's going to be shocked to hear me say this, but I will say that you can gain more life force from beef, from anywhere, the crappiest beef, because the fact that creature had to walk into the processing plant, because they have to, that is the law. That is the one thing that is for real law. They have to walk in. If they have enough life-giving force to be able to stand and walk in, then they have enough life force for you to gain something. It's definitely, even if that creature was alive and breathing and down on the ground, it has more life force than broccoli. Okay. So, is that what my favorite thing is for you to have? No.
No, I'm just saying somebody that doesn't have
access. If you don't have access, I mean, and supposedly, and I don't really know this or believe this for sure, but people think that Costco has a better quality. I think they're just buying it from the regular old big packers like everybody else.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe Harris Teeter and Costco are like better than Walmart.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, right? And whenever even if I go to a Whole Foods somewhere on the opposite end of the country and you see that same product, it kind of always makes me go, boy, if they're delivering this much out there, the more volume you have, I feel like just to some degree, and this may just be a little bias I have, but the quality is going to be a little bit lower, right?
That is not a bias. That is the truth. And
Yeah.
there's only 3 Packers in the country.
Oh, no kidding.
So only 3.
Yeah.
It's not like a monopoly or anything.
Yeah. So let's move off this. So we want to eat beef. Now let's say, okay, I'm sold. I don't want to be in that world. If I can help it, I want to find a farmer for my family. What should I be looking for? Where do I even start? Because I remember years ago, like I would go on the internet and there was just like nothing, there was nothing really around,
When I started, there was no internet.
Yeah, right. No,
I mean, the internet might have been there, but I didn't have access to.
Yeah. So, I mean, where should I even start? Is there a website that you can go to and you can find a local farmer that does farming and things like that?
You can start with eatwild.com
Okay.
or localharvest.org. And then you can punch in your zip code, and then you can find a list for your zip code. And then you start calling those people on the list. And then maybe some of them are out of business or I don't really know, but you go through, and then I behoove you to go physically to see them on their farm. Like I personally would not buy anything if I couldn't go to their land. So I would definitely say that you should make an appointment because you're going to somebody's house. People say to me, why do you not do farm tours for the CSA? I'm like, because that is somebody's house.
Yeah.
I'm not going to impose an entire event, for them to have to host at their house. But if you want to call them and go visit, then you should totally do that. And if you don't want to do that, whatever, I don't know. But
Yeah. And what are you looking for? So if I show up at the farm, and I'm walking around with a farmer, what am I looking for and what am I asking?
So, number one, you should just feel like you just walked into heaven. I mean, it should just look like the well-being is everywhere, and you should be able to feel that. You shouldn't be uncomfortable. You shouldn't be feeling all itchy and crazy, because if there's a whole bunch of bugs now, I don't mean that you don't see flies around a cow or something, because, there's life happening. What I mean is that, it is like dirty. That's obvious, I think. You also want the ground to be covered, because the soil doesn't want to be naked. So if the soil is covered, it's great. It should be a lush cover. It should maybe it should be that you can see that the creatures were here and it's been worn down and now they're over here and they're being moved to fresh grass. And so they're being controlled, and you can see that there's an area of the land that looks like it has been grazed over, and then there's this lush, carpet that's waiting for them, like this huge salad bar. Also, you want it to be diverse. Like, what do you want to see in your salad bowl? I mean, you want a mixture of things. So for them, you want to see a mixture of things. I mean, we've got first of all, they shouldn't be also tilling it, but they should be seed drilling things in. And also they can be, once they do this one time, Tony, then those creatures are eating and pooping. So they're reseeding behind them. If a farm is doing what they're supposed to do, then that creature would eat grass that probably might have seed on top, which would be the grain, right? So it is sort of grain finished, kind of, because it's eating this tall grass that has the seed on top. So it is getting some of that grain. But getting a grass grain versus corn and soybeans is 2 different things.
Right. For sure. Yeah.
And so you want it to have a nice tall grass, and a lush grass. You don't want it to be on this much grass, because what is there to eat?
Yeah.
There's nothing there. So you need to make sure that their place should not look like lawn mowed. It shouldn't look like a golf course. Yeah. It should maybe look scary in the sense of the diversity that you see, You don't maybe want to feel comfortable walking through it because you think, oh my gosh, there's so many things and it's so tall, and maybe there could be a snake in there. I don't know, but like you want it to be nice and lush.
Yeah.
And
Dare I say, natural.
yes, it's not going to look groomed, and I mean, when I say groomed, it should look delicious. It should look like a salad bar. Like like we have arugula and kale and turnip greens and things, because look, that turnip is nourishing the soil, which is fertilizing it. You can call them sacrificial vegetables if you want, beetroots, and the greens on top are great for the creatures. Onions, there's a variety of things, and all of those. I mean, these creatures are, they're infinitely intelligent, and they know how to find some of the onion grass when they need it in the spring or whatever. I mean, they know how to find the things that they want, but you also want to make sure that they are being forced to have a balanced meal, which means that they're tight and they're moving together. And so they're forced to eat a mixed salad bar. Mm-hmm. If they're all over the place and they're super free ranged, then they're also probably picky eaters. And you'll have a little bit more of an inconsistent product probably with that. And they're also going to have a lot more problems on their land. Like, people are worried about parasitic loads and all these other things. Well, you can't have that if you have rest. If you have mob, rest, mob, rest, mob, rest, then nature has time. That's the reason why they migrated in these massive herds, and the stampede would come through and the land would be totally like worn down, and then it was rested and it was able to get back up, and it was regenerating, and it was more healthy, and it came up with more medicine for them, right? So, and the Native Americans weren't stupid, okay? They were moving these people, moving these creatures, the buffalo, on purpose in areas consciously, and creating a landscape that would provide the best for the creatures and for themselves.
Yeah.
And it would be easy for them to move them.
Yeah. So being able to see, when you go to the farm, to see various, what do they call them, paddocks?
They might be paddocks. It might be tracks. I mean, depending on how they're doing it. If they're mob grazing, they could be doing it in rows. So it could be that they're pushing them down a trail, and it would maybe make rings, or squares.
But the idea is the same. We want them to they eat the grass and they move to the next one, so that can regrow. So they just keep sort of revolving this around. And a lot of times they've got chickens following them, or other animals following them to till the soil and to fertilize the soil. And that's what regenerative farming really is. It's kind of getting back to how Mother Nature really intended our food to grow, right?
I mean, you need a multi faceted farm, mainly because, look, when those birds go back and clean everything out, they're also, they're relieving a parasitic load, they're reseeding, they're, putting down their own, defecation, which is all these varieties of natural fertilizers, and they're cleaning up pests, right? And they're making it possible so that those creatures don't have to deal with ticks and all this other kind of thing. And then, hogs are clearing trails. They're the husbandry for the woods, really. Yeah. And, that's why it's important to support this symbiotic relationship, with all of the creatures. That's why I like this chaos that we're dealing with. I call it the viral terrorism that's going on right now. I mean, why are we fearing nature? I don't like that they're trying to teach everybody to fear it when it, everything's in balance. Everything's great. Everything's fine. You don't see the creatures right now. When you look out, you don't see the beasts of the world worried about nothing. Yeah. They're totally chill. Like, if you see that, if there was some real actual crisis going on, then you would see a shift in the wildlife and in whatever. You would see the creatures like freaking out. Yeah. They're so happy right now.
So going back to the farm, like what would be some of the questions you might ask that farmer? So you're looking around, it kind of looks like pretty cool, right? And it's lush, and you see cows out grazing and chickens running around, and it's kind of that old school farm sort of picture that I have in my head. And but what are some of the questions that you might ask the farmer? Because there's a chance that these kinds of farmers, the regulations aren't as strong on them. So they, one of the things that I thought was a good question was, is your farm organic? And like, well, I don't want to pay all the money to be organic, but we do follow organic, processes. Like, is that a valid question or?
No, because organic is below my standards. So the standards should be more, okay, look, putting a standard on a farm is like me saying, hey, Tony, here's the standards that we need you to raise your son, okay? And here they are, and you have to do it to this standard. And if you only get it to this standard, he's only going to be an F or whatever, right? And that's ridiculous, okay? But yeah, we need to kind of have some idea what they're doing. My questions would be things like, do you use chemicals on your land?
Like weed,
Okay.
herbicide?
I don't care if it's organic or not. It's a chemical. It is an interference. Are you interfering with the symbiotic balance on your land? Very easy, cut and dry. You either are or you are not.
Yeah. So asking like, are you spraying your pasture or something like that?
Well, yeah, just do you use chemicals?
Use chemicals. Okay.
I don't care if they're organic or not. You just need to know, do you use them? Yeah. And when they say, oh yeah, we just use this organic something or another or whatever, why are you using it? Where are you using it? And then that's between you and yourself. This is between you and you. For me, that there's no poison level that is okay. Zero.
Because for me, it can be done the other way.
Right. Yeah. And if they don't know how to do it, then we can talk to them about how to do it if they want to know how to do it. Because a lot of these guys just don't know how.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and then I would say, do you vaccinate? And a lot of them probably do, because if they're trying to sell things at a farmer's market, then they have to meet standards. They have to meet health code. They have to say certain things or else they can't arrive at market. Okay. And so, do you participate in a market? Do you want to not participate in a market? Do you want me to help you not participate in a market? I don't know how involved you want to be. I don't know if you want to help them, promote whatever they're doing. I don't know if you want to connect them with me. I'm happy to talk to them. And, I really am. I would want to talk to them. And then, even include them in a directory. Like, I'm trying to build up, more connections and know where people are. So there's that.
If you're watching this and you hear and you meet a farmer that's doing some really good things or needs help, here's the connection. Yeah.
Let me know.
Yeah.
And do you understand how to use natural deworming ideas? Like, plant some tobacco in certain areas for them, or burn some wood and let them eat the charcoal, let them have access. Like how we use charcoal to detoxify diatomaceous earth or calcium bentonite clay. I mean, all of these things work for the animals too, and they want that. People act like you shouldn't be burning wood because you're just, hurting the trees. This is a lie. This is an institutional size lie. You need to provide husbandry. You need to cut trees down. You need to burn wood. And burning wood, interestingly, the smoke that goes into the atmosphere helps to balance our atmosphere. So burning wood is a good thing. And that charcoal that's produced as a result of that is used to provide, that's medicine for all kinds of livestock.
Wow, interesting. I had no idea. That's interesting. Yeah. So what about like processing the meat? So would you ask questions about where you get your meat processed? Is that a valid question?
Yeah, I would say, where do you process? I would call the processor and say, what is your procedure for, do you clean the meat? Do you rinse the meat? Do you spray the meat down? What do you do? Some of them are using an acid wash, and I would say, can you just do hot water? Does it have to be acid? Because ours is only being washed with hot water.
Interesting.
And so what's happening is that every night they disinfect the space, floor to ceiling, with chlorine. But in the morning when they come in, so, they do a chlorine disinfection for the space. And in the morning, there's a powder residue everywhere because of the chlorine. And so in the morning, they take hot water and then wash everything off and rinse all that off. So that powder is washed away, but everything's been disinfected overnight. And then all the carcasses are rinsed with hot water, like a pressure wash with hot water. And then they're packaged. So they're never actually sprayed with a chemical. At least not the processors that we're using.
We'll do that. We'll actually spray with, that's a question you can ask. They don't have to spray with chlorine? Or
Right. Because White Oak Pasture, they spray the carcass with some kind of acid. I think they call it a citric acid or whatever, but like I don't want any acid on my meat. I
Yeah,
want it just to be hot water. And it
right.
doesn't have to be anything but hot water.
Cool.
And when some people can do it with hot water, then why can't everybody just do it with hot water?
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody's telling them otherwise, but yeah, that's interesting. Any other questions that you'd ask a processor?
I would just say, are you able to cut the steer so I can get? I want messy, ugly steaks with lots of fat on them. I want you to leave the fat on them. I don't want you to trim them. I mean, if you're aging them a little bit, yeah, obviously I want you to cut the mold off because some of them will be smart Alex and be like, oh, you want us to leave the mold on there too? Then, no, smarty panties. No, I want you to clean the carcass and then I want you to leave all the fat and make me some ugly steaks with some fat on it because I want to have the opportunity to cut and use the fat however I want or eat it. Okay. So I want ugly steaks
Nice.
with the fat intact because the suet is powerful. And the visceral fat, I want that suet to be packaged, and I want all my steaks to be bone in.
Yeah.
And then, because those are all medicinal cuts of meat. And I want you to stake out everything, and leave as much fat on everything as possible. And I have them cube the rounds so that it's tenderized, so we can actually eat them.
Mhm.
And that way you'll have a minimal amount of ground left over and the maximum amount of steaks.
Nice. Yeah. I think one of the big misconceptions that's been around for so long is like, I want only lean meat, but you and I think a little bit differently. We know that when you have a good quality cow that's been raised appropriately, that the fat brings so much value to the actual meat.
That's the only place where all the medicine is.
Yeah.
All the vitamins and minerals that you think you want, that's in the fat.
Yeah.
And the other thing about pasture raised meat that's 36 months old or older, is that it has a lot of micro fat in the meat, which is how it becomes more tender. And when it's younger, it isn't tender. And that's the other reason why people don't like grass fed.
Yeah.
They think grain fed is the only tender meat when it's fakely tender. It's been fakely tenderized by the grain.
Yeah.
And those creatures are in kidney and renal failure. And so their muscles are in, honestly, I think that's what you would call muscular, what do you call it? When the muscles are degenerating. My mind just went totally blank,
I'm
but
not sure, but I mean, I kind of view it almost as like they're metabolically deranged. Like there's something wrong with those animals because
they're definitely in a metabolic crisis.
yeah.
Their health is metabolically in a crisis.
And that fat arguably is just not going to be like, if you get conventional meat, that fat is very different than the fat that you're going to find in a like a true grass-fed, really, really healthy cow. Like it's so different.
Muscle wasting.
Muscle wasting. Okay. Yeah.
That's what's happening.
Yeah. They're not interested in how much muscle's on it. The fat does.
No. The reason that you think that those steaks are tender is because those creatures are in a state of muscle wasting.
Yeah.
And grass-fed beef has micro fat in it, and when it's old enough, when it's ready to be processed, not when it's too young.
Yeah. It makes total sense. So, well, let me wrap this up because I've got to get rolling. I've got some more stuff going on today, but I appreciate you being here. Tell me how, and maybe you mentioned this in the beginning and I can't remember, but how can people reach out to you and ask you questions or learn a little bit more about what you're doing? Where can they find you?
So I think the best thing would be to go to my nonprofit website, which is farm2forkmeatriot.org. That's farmtoforkmeatriot.org. And I have a YouTube channel link there. I mean, all my social is linked there. And yeah, I'm actually going to start having an online like Zoom church service once a week. And so I'll share that on my social media if you guys follow my social to
Cool.
see when I start doing that. because conversations like this have been something that a lot of people are asking of me recently in the past 10 days, especially. A lot of people are ever since my book came out, people, and buy my book, guys, because a lot of that information is in here. And so you'll have it. And I actually have a livestock report card in here. And that way you know what you're looking for. But take that report card with a grain of salt. And when you present and show my book to a farmer that you're interested in working with, and let them know why you're asking and what you're looking for. Maybe, see if they're interested in learning more about it, because I definitely want to work with and promote farmers. If you're a farmer out there, my book is actually designed to be a tool for you to educate eaters so that y'all have a better understanding with each other, And so, yeah, I would love to hear from everybody. I try to be as accessible as I can.
You always are. You always are.
If you go on there, there's even I have an opportunity where you can just schedule like a meeting with the author. So it doesn't have to be like a coaching session for health, but sometimes people just want to talk to me about what's in the book or whatever. And I am kind of tied up with all of my other coaching stuff. So I set it up now, Tony, where people can click the link and schedule a time and, just have an open session, whatever they want to know.
And I'll post this. I'll write this stuff out too, and I'll put it as part of this video. But it's Farm to Fork Meat Riot.org.
I'll send you. How about I send you a link? I'll send you. I have a tree link. I started doing tree links. Isn't that cool?
I don't even know what that is.
It's this place where you can put a bunch of links for you, and it's a tree of links. I'll just send you my tree link, and it has all the links in one link.
Well, that would be awesome. Yeah. Nithi, thank you so much. I appreciate you spending time with me today. It's always nice to see you. And I know it's been a long time since we've really had a chance to catch up. So this has been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you.
Oh, we're old friends, Tony, and I always appreciate you. And thank you so much for having me and asking me to do this with you.
All right. We'll talk to you again very soon. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you like it, please share it with all your friends. And if you are interested in knowing my story or learning about the nonprofit work that I do, then please read my book. I'll make sure that there's a link in the notes. And while you're at our website, then you could become a sustainer and help support regenerative agriculture. We really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.